that the High Court, the three-judge bench, is set to continue to listen to the impeachment hearing of Rigathi Gachagua as the second in command. Remember, Rigathi Gachagua yesterday, like I said, did lodge an appeal, a petition at the Court of Appeal, citing dissatisfaction with the ruling of the three-judge bench in regards to the powers accorded to the Deputy Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu in empaneling a bench. And the Court of Appeal rather certified that particular matter as urgent. But before we continue with that, let's still get what is making headlines in the news this particular morning. And the tendering exercise over forest logging will now be open to all Kenyans. This is according to President William Ruto, who says the exercise will now be conducted in an open and transparent manner in an effort to protect Kenya from illegal logging. Mumbi Wambogu tells us more.
A pass-out parade for 574 Kenya Forest Service officers led by President William Ruto. Here, the president announced an open tendering in forest logging to enable transparency.
The old method of allocating forest resources to people in a manner that is not transparent has stopped. Going forward, all public resources in the forest will be tendered for in a transparent, clear manner.
The head of state has also announced that by next year, 200,000 youths will be involved in climate change action works, which will be led by KFS officers. As of now, 20,000 youths are employed in the initiative. Ruto has further noted that KFS will no longer be dependent on government funding, noting that it's now in a position to generate its own funds.
This year, we only supported Kenya Forest Service to the tune of 290 million. The rest of the 4.7 billion budget is raised by Kenya Forest Service itself.
Environment stakeholders accompanying the president called on Kenyans to conserve and protect the environment as the country gears up to the 15 billion forest cover drive by the year 2032.
Your Excellency, sir, these graduates have undergone successfully and completed a 6-month rigorous paramilitary training, and now they are ready to pick up their responsibilities.
That will also help the 15 billion tree growing campaign program with the objective of creating unemployment opportunities for over 200,000 youth annually.
Mumbi Wambogo, K24 TV, Nakuru County.
That was Mumbi Wambogo from Nakuru County. Now let's just start looking at what is making headlines in the local dailies this particular morning, and we of course begin with the People Daily. And they talk about new rules on poll petitions. They say MPs agree on constitutional changes to extend period for Supreme Court dispute hearing and review of boundaries. That is a story on page 4. And the changes, of course, include extension of timelines in presidential petition and altering the process of boundaries review. Now, among the new rules is that the National Assembly report wants the Constitution amended to extend the timeline for hearing of presidential petitions from the 14 days that we have at the moment to 21 days, from 2 weeks to 3. Now, another rule is that IEBC cannot transact any business as the term of some commissioners came to an end while 3 quit and the 4th was forced out. Again, the National Assembly report committee wants the declaration of the results of presidential election by the chairperson be done after verification. They want, of course, the announcement of the winner to be done after verification has been undertaken. Of course, on the issue of boundary review is that they say the decision comes after the committee. The decision of the committee comes after the three judges comes after the judges in 2022 rather called for an amendment of the law to allow the Supreme Court to hear and determine presidential petitions and write its judgments. The Constitution of Kenya grants the right to any person to challenge the presidential election result within 7 days from the date of its declaration. And that is a story that you can get on page 4 of the People Daily. And just below that is a story of Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah criticizing the courts for engaging in what he calls judicial activism. But the key highlight here, because the sentiments of Kimani Ichung'wah came during the retreat of the National Assembly House leadership in Naivasha, Nakuru County yesterday. And some of the issues that raised eyebrows, or that legislators or the House leadership raised concerns on, is on the issue of the high cost of power here in the country, as well as the issue of frequent power outages. And they say that alone is eroding investor confidence in the country, and it's sort of forcing them to go and invest in neighboring countries. They want the Ministry of Energy to ensure that the challenges in that particular sector are fully sorted. Remember, this comes at a time when the sector in itself, and when I talk about the sector, to be specific, K24 did get into an agreement with Adani Energy Solutions to, of course, ensure that the country is well connected. But that particular, agreement was sort of halted by the courts. And we'll wait to see, even as Junet Mohammed, the minority leader, says there is need to focus more on the issue of infrastructure and ensure that we have improved infrastructure in the energy sector here in the country. Now, is a very, very interesting story on page 7 of the Daily, the People Daily, and that is in regards to a scandal that happened 16 years ago, worth 7.6 billion Kenya shillings. That is a story on page 7. And they say K24 refusal to testify in Triton case leads to collapse. Remember, the key suspect, that is Yanesh Devani, was extradited into the country in regards to that particular scandal that, like I said, happened 16 years ago. And the former energy minister, that is a former Meru governor as well, K24 Murungi, refused to testify. And the mysterious disappearance of 2 other key witnesses are some of the reasons as to why the ODPP sought to terminate that particular case. Remember, the ODPP in itself has been under fire for some time in regards to the withdrawal of cases or key cases, especially corruption cases here in the country. And of course, K24 Murungi had been listed as a crucial witness according to the ruling by the court. And the ODPP, led by Renson Ingonga and its senior prosecution counsel, Alphas Ombati, on October 9th, made an oral application to terminate the case. But they say Barasa directed the DPP to file an affidavit in court. He could make a determination on the matter that he said was of great public interest. Barasa, that is the chief magistrate of the anti-corruption, matters anti-corruption, and there are various concerns in regards to, in as much as it has been 16 years ever since this particular scandal happened, we cannot just let it be terminated due to the refusal of key witnesses to appear before court and testify against Yanesh Devani. And the same story is on the front page of the Standard this particular morning, and they say key witnesses, including former Minister K24 Murungi, refused to testify again in the case that lost the country billions. Yanesh Devani, the architect of the oil deal, had been on the run for 16 years until he was extradited from the United Kingdom to face crimes that the DPP said could not be proven. The key highlight there is the ODPP saying the case could not be proven. K24 Murungi, the former energy minister, said, "I provided my evidence over a decade ago. Consequently, I am not available for any further attendance in this case." The anti-corruption magistrate, that is Harrison Barasa, said, We would be forcing the agencies to continue a case when they have made it clear they lack sufficient evidence to sustain it. Philip Mugo, a former director of public prosecutions, said a prosecution review is a continuous exercise. At some point, there might be evidence and things might change after many years. Now, joining me this particular morning is Honorable David Kiplagat, the Member of Parliament for Soy constituency. A very good morning to you, Honorable Member.
Good morning, and also good morning our viewers. Thank you.
How are things in Soy?
Not bad. At least people are harvesting, and we expect a pamba harvest. So, and also we are waiting for GOK to give a better price for stabilization of maize prices. It's
interesting you've talked about that, because I was listening to the speeches from those who attended the church service where the president was in Our Lady of Fatima in Moiben, where you were in attendance.
Yeah, yes.
And there was some sort of disagreement in regards to the price. What do you have to say in regards to that? What is your preferred price? What price do you want the government to give?
Yeah, basically the government comes in to actually stabilize the prices, so that at least the farmer can be able to go back to the shamba a bit happy. And you know, strategic food security is a security issue in the nationally, and the only stable food that we have as a country is maize. So it's part within our constitution that we ensure that there is food security in the country, and part of it is to ensure that at least the farmers have an appetite to go back to farm. So that is why the government comes in, so that they can be able to stabilize that price. And based on the input cost, we expect at least a minimum of 4,000 baht to be offered by the National Cereals and Produce Board. And I think the government is working on it, so that in a few weeks they will be able to announce that price. So we are very expectant, and we know things will run smoothly.
Okay, thank you very much. I just want to pick your mind in regards to the case that I was talking about on they call it the Triton scam. 7.6 billion shillings was lost in that particular oil scandal 16 years ago, but now the ODPP says they want the case to be terminated because there's no sufficient evidence in this case. I don't know what you make about that. This is a man who was extradited from the United Kingdom to face the charges of that particular scandal. What do you make of it?
I know this is a judicial process, and any judicial process requires that the DPP proves his case beyond any reasonable doubt. And I think looking at what has happened in this case, given that the longer the case has been in court, the more the witnesses keep on, maybe by their own volition, they keep on not appearing or refusing to appear, and some might also disappear through natural attrition. So it is bound to happen when a case stays in court for so long that what we are now seeing on the Defani case, in which he has been set free for lack of sufficient evidence, which is actually cobbled by witnesses, the main witnesses refusing to testify. So maybe what we are learning from this case is that for major corruption cases, there is need to give a timeline when the court are able to handle the case, so that it can be sorted out within the shortest time possible, when all the witnesses and the case is still tight and fresh.
Okay, fair enough. Moving forward on the standard, on page 12, the Supreme Court is expected today to rule on the fate of the Finance Act 2023 after the government did lodge an appeal regarding the legality of the Finance Act 2023. I mean, after the withdrawal of the Finance Act 2024, the government is, according to those close to the president and the president himself, we are staring at, trying to find other avenues to find funds to sustain operations and implement development projects and all that. Yeah. Do you expect that the the Supreme Court will rule in favor of the government in this particular case? And if not, what can the government do to get more funds?
Okay, maybe what we need to tell ourselves is that all of us are Kenyans. Even the churches, they are not foreigners, they are also Kenyans. And to be litigating on an act that is 2 years old, that has served its purpose, and if it were not for what happened in the Finance Bill 2024, I think this ruling could not do anything. But given that basically because of the Finance 2024 not having been assented to, then it lays a critical issue as to what the Supreme Court will rule. But basically, we have a country to run, and the only way we run a country is through collection of taxes. And you cannot be able to pay even your workers, including the churches, if you don't have money to pay so. And the only way you get money is through the finance bill, and that finance bill 2023 is the one the country is depending on, is depending upon. So that to leave the stability of running the country, I doubt whether they will make adverse observations on it, because basically these are politics, and there is difference in politics and running the country. So unless they have any other option of where they think the government will raise revenue, then they need to tell us. But basically for normality to continue in this country, I think that case will be thrown out.
Now, I want to attribute that story to a story on page 4 of the People Daily. And yesterday in a retreat of the House leadership, where you sit in Naivasha, Kimani Ichung'wah, Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah, the majority leader, said, and I don't want to just quote what he said. He criticized the judiciary for what he described as calculated attempt to invalidate various bills passed by the House and forwarded to the President for assent. He calls it judicial activism. Do you agree with your leader of majority, your leader in the House?
I think I'll agree with him 100%. Basically, unless the law that is being passed by Parliament is against the certain sections of articles of the Constitution, that is the only way you can render an act unconstitutional. But you have seen a scenario whereby the charges are focused so much on public participation without necessarily giving the scope of what they need to see in the public participation. And for sure, every bill in Parliament will have to go through public participation. And the litigious nature of the public participation is how much did you engage, but that doesn't necessarily invalidate Parliament as the people's representative, because Parliament is, we have Parliament so that not all, basically what happens in direct democracy is that everybody could have come in Parliament. The 50 million or so Kenyans could have been in Parliament where they can discuss their issues and be able to pass. But because practically that is not possible, that is why we have constituencies, so that every constituency will elect their member of Parliament, and that member of Parliament will be their voice and will do their representation in Parliament. So when I am passing a bill, I do it on behalf of 100,000 voters in Soy who gave me the mandate to represent them. So I think that alone, which is provided by the Constitution, should not be demeaned, so that if the court now turns into a theater whereby every bill they have to be engaged. So unless we also amend our law in the process of making bills, so that we also include courts to be the last arbiter in terms of looking at whether it is valid or not. But otherwise, if this economy is supposed to develop, if we are supposed to develop this country, let us also give the various arms of government to be able to execute their function without another one being excess and being overbearing or on the other arms of government. So I agree with our majority leader fully that courts need to be cautious whenever they are dealing with legislation that Parliament has been given the power to be able to legislate.
But sometimes the National Assembly is on, you've been accused of sometimes disregarding the law, and the judiciary is there to ensure that the law is adhered to the letter.
You see what I was telling you, how do you disregard the law when you are making the law? It is a process of making the law, and every process up to when now it goes to third reading. Immediately we do the first reading. It goes to the relevant committee. That relevant committee is mandated to call for a public participation, and public participation and a report will be done, which will be tabled during the second reading, and it goes that process. And some bills will go to the Senate, while some bills in the Senate will come to National Assembly. So there is no step we miss. But I would have been a bit cautious and bit thumbs up to the court if they are saying a certain section of this act violates a certain article of the Constitution, hence it is invalid and null and void to the extent that that violation is being done. That is the narrow prism that our courts should be entertained to be looking at our bills. But in terms of now picking village gossips and street propaganda that happens, and then they decide that the bill didn't go through public participation, or they don't like the face of it, or they, you know.
Now,
because at the end of the day, we are accountable to Kenyans, and after every 5 years, we shall go back to Kenyans, where we shall ask that we be re-elected. And if Kenyans feel that maybe we were overbearing or things like that, then they will do their best to bring other able Kenyans to come to National Assembly to come and represent them. But so we always have a date with Kenyans so that our report can be able to be evaluated. But let us avoid a situation whereby courts are interpreting every law that comes into being. And I doubt whether there is a country that is as litigious as Kenyan courts. I think they are just they just find their way in every matter. I know it is not the courts who actually bring the cases. It is the nature of Kenyans to take everything to court. But what we are telling the courts, also let them have a filter so that cases that have no grounds, cases that are just there to entertain and to massage to massage what is happening in the streets. I think they should be given a speed governor to reduce on that, so that we can be able to develop this country.
Of course, one of the key things and one of the bonds of contention has been the issue of public participation and how different people interpret it. But because of time, I just want us to look at one final story on the front page of the Daily Nation, and they say how police use phones to track and capture suspects. A months-long investigation exposes how Kenyan police access customers' sensitive call data records and identify crime suspects in breach of customers' right to privacy, and how telecoms companies frustrate justice in cases where security agencies are implicated in the murder and enforced disappearances. In this era of enforced disappearances, this month alone we've seen at least 6 different people disappear, and later on they're found dead. It raises very serious concerns. As a lawmaker yourself, what do you make of the security agencies accessing data, which is a breach of customers' right to privacy?
So basically, before I even delve on access to information by the police, it is very unfortunate that we are losing so many Kenyans. So many Kenyans are disappearing, and finally they are found having been killed. It's an unfortunate state of affairs that I feel the investigative agencies and security apparatus should move in so that it should be curtailed, because it is raising eyebrows, and things are not very well when people just disappear like that, and the frequency is increasing. So that one, we want to condemn it with the strongest terms possible and call on the security apparatus to be able to investigate the matter. So having said that, on data security, it's very important that we follow the law. There is a law on data security, and there is a law on what you need to do for it to be able to access information for purposes of investigations. I think you need to go to court, and then the court will give that okay. So I think we need to tell the investigating agencies to respect data confidentiality, because that one is enshrined in our constitution, and we are a country that is run by the law. We have a country that is run on the constitution. So we also want to tell the telecommunications people. I think we always sign terms of agreement, so that at least you ensure that the data I give you, you give it as confidential as possible. And if anybody in this country wants to access, they know how to access. You need to go to get a court order, and so that you can be given that rights for that specific information that you need. But let them not have that privilege of having data belonging to Kenyans who are supposed to hold in confidence, starting to share with any other agency without the express way of accessing through the law. So I think on that one we condemn, and we call upon those agencies to be able to follow the law. So there is nowhere in a country where data is just open for any Dick and Harry to come and be able to access your information. So that confidentiality should be upheld.
Fair enough. I think even more concerning is not them giving information in breach of customer privacy, rights to privacy, but also what they say is frustrating justice in cases where security agencies are implicated in murder and enforced disappearances. But because of time, we just take a brief breath, and then we'll talk about. I'll give you a minute after we resume from a break to finalize on that. But on that note, we just take a brief breather. We'll be back with the big conversation this particular morning. Don't go away.
We interrupt this program to bring you some breaking news.
Meet the team